Here's our complete beginner's guide to video editing. We're going to share our step-by-step process so that you can learn how to edit videos for YouTube or other projects quickly and easily. Now, the most efficient way to edit and to learn to edit is by following a specific process so that you know that you're doing the right things in the right order and not unnecessarily wasting your time. So I'm going to take you through our process in this video, and I will have a link down in the description box below where you can download, you can print out this process to follow along when you're editing your videos. So make sure you're grabbing your copy. Now for this tutorial, I'm going to be using a Mac and using CapCut, which has an amazing free version. There's also a Windows version of CapCut available too. So you can definitely grab the free version of CapCut and follow along. It's an amazing tool, but also because I'm showing you the step-by-step process here to edit, you can actually follow along and follow the same processes in whatever editing tool or software you'd like to use. So the first thing you want to do is open up your video editing software. You can see I've got CapCut open here now, and now we want to create our project and get our project set up. So I'm going to come up the top here to new project, and then what you want to do is jump into the settings to make sure that your project is set up correctly. So in a lot of tools, that's up here under the menu options. On CapCut, it's actually over on the side here. We've got modify, which will modify our project settings. So in here, we want to give our project a name. Let's call this just an edit. You'll be able to choose where this project is saved. I'm going to leave it in this location for now. You'll also be able to do things like specify the aspect ratio or what format of video you're going to be creating. So you can see if we select on this, we can do a widescreen video, we can do a portrait video if we want to create a short or a TikTok video. But you'll see that we've also got the option here to leave this as original in this case, which a lot of software has this as well. And this is where a lot of these settings are going to be pre-populated or automatically generated from the first video clip that you bring into the project. So as long as you're aware of that and the first video clip you bring into your project is your main camera footage, then you can actually let your software decide in a lot of cases all of these settings here for you. And so in this case, we can leave this as original. Likewise, for the resolution, we can leave this as adapted. So it's going to automatically detect for us. But again, if we do want to dive in and customize this up, then we have that ability here too. I'm going to leave this on adapted, and the same for frame rate and color space. So unless you're after something specific or you know that your camera settings were different to these settings, then in a lot of tools, you can likely leave this stuff to its default setting. I'm going to hit save. So now that we've got our editing project set up and created, a really quick overview of a typical editing interface like this. Up in the top left-hand corner is where you normally access things like your media library, where you can import your files. You can see we've also got these different areas or different buttons across the top for text, for stickers, for effects, transitions, lots of different things that we can access from up here too. I'm going to leave this as media. We've got our playback window here. This is where we can preview and play back the video that we're editing down. Right now we're seeing our project details up in this area here, but this is also where we can dial in a lot of our settings and things as we go through. And again, this is a pretty typical layout for most tools out there. And down the bottom here, we have our timeline. This is where the magic happens. This is where you will be actually performing your edits. So with that out of the way, the next step is to import our video footage. And again, we want to import our primary camera footage first so that our project can be configured off that file. So I want to hit import here, or in a lot of cases, you could choose file import. You then want to navigate through on your computer to find the files you want to import. In this case, I'm just going to bring in that one primary camera footage first, and then we can import the other files later. So there is my camera recording. I'm going to import that. And we can see that clip is now up here in our media library. Now, in most video editing tools, there's lots of different ways that you can do the same things. So it's about understanding what tools you've got access to, because in some cases, it's going to make more sense to do things one way over another. So we now have this file that's imported into our project, but we're not ready to start editing it until it's down in our timeline down here. So we can just click on this clip and we can drag it down here into our timeline. And this is how we can start to edit it now that it's down there. But let's say that you don't want to bring this whole clip here down to the timeline. We could select on this. We can press delete on the keyboard to remove it, or there's also a little trash can icon here to delete. In a lot of tools, we can actually specify the area of that clip that we want to bring down if there's a small section of it that we're after. So we can see here in CapCut, as I move my mouse cursor over to the left side of this clip, our cursor changes. If I click and drag and scrub through here, you can see that blue box is actually adjusting there. So we're actually adjusting the start time of that clip. And obviously we get a bigger preview of it over here. Likewise with the end of the clip, if we want it to finish earlier, then we can click and drag that back to just map out or mark out the section of that clip that we want. And then we can click and drag that down into our timeline, and it's just gonna bring in that section. So I'm gonna undo that now, delete this clip. There's also undo and redo buttons up here as well. I'm gonna bring in the entire clip. So I'm just gonna mark out this whole section here. Given that this is only a 5-minute clip, I usually just do the bulk of the editing in that main timeline. So I'm gonna bring that whole clip down here. And what we can see here is we've got little thumbnail images of our videos, so we can see what's happening in there. But below that, we're seeing our audio waveforms. This is our visual representation of the audio that's happening with that video clip. So we can easily see the areas where I'm speaking, where I'm not speaking, and we can actually use those to help us edit down faster. Now with this timeline area, you can see that this is pretty small down the bottom here now. A lot of these windows and things you can resize, you can make bigger or smaller. We also have the ability to zoom in and out over on the side here as well. So if we zoom in here, you can see that we're going to see more details, which means we can make more precise edits. So you want to go ahead now and bring in your primary camera footage into your timeline. It could be one clip, it could be multiple clips that you've got. You can just bring them all down and stack them one after the other to build out the overall sequence of your edit. Once that's in, we're going to start to edit this down. As I said, with editing, there's lots of different ways that you can do things. So I'm going to run through the most popular ways just again, so you've got a grasp on that. So we'll start off by removing all the bad takes, all the mistakes, all the things that we actually don't want to have in our finished project, because editing is an iterative process. So we'll do a pass, we'll clean things up, tidy it up a bit, and then there'll be further refining on the next pass. So let's start off with the start of this clip here. We can already see visually here that I'm not speaking at the start of this clip. And if we zoom in, that'll become easier to see. So we can see that there's this quiet section here, and there's no audio until this point where we can see that in our audio waveforms. If we press play, we'll be able to see that too. All right, we are. Yep, so I'm looking around. I even say, all right, we're recording, just running some last minute checks. Here I'm saying something like 1, 2, 1, 2. So I actually don't start presenting the video until down here. So really this is where we want our video to start. So to remove all of this stuff here at the start, one way to do it is we can come to the start. We can put our mouse over that left side of the clip. Again, you can see our mouse cursor has changed. We can click and drag back this way to where we want the video to start. And you can see that when we release that, that has removed that section. This clip now starts at that point. Really simple. Now, if we jump across to the end of the clip here, we can do exactly the same. We can see that I finish recording the video around here, and obviously we can click and drag through, and we can actually play and listen to find these sections as well. But I like to use the visual representation here if it's a video like this. And then to trim off this end, we can just grab the end and we can drag it back to that point, and our video is now going to finish at that point. Now we can also clearly see here in the timeline that there is a gap here. So another area where I am not speaking. So we're going to want to remove this too. So what we can do, we can move this cursor here, this playback head. We can click and drag this to where we want to cut our timeline into. And then we'll want to find our cut or blade tool in our editing software to make a cut at that point. So in CapCut, it's this icon here, which will split our clip for us, but usually it's a pair of scissors. But you can see by pressing that, it's actually split our clip in two. We have a left clip and a right clip. So with this left clip selected now, we can actually move our mouse to that edge and we can click and drag across. And you can see that we're able to close up our gap that way as well. Another way that we could do this, if I undo that now, let's hit undo here, is that we could add a second cut in our timeline and just remove that section. So let's move this back here, this playback head back to where we want to cut to remove this section. We can press that button here, or it also says that we've got the keyboard shortcut here, Command B, which would be Control B on Windows. We can press on that. You can see now we've got 3 clips here. We can select on this one here. We can delete it. We can press the trash icon here or press delete on the keyboard, and that clip is gone as well. So you can see a couple of different ways that we can do things. So using a combination of those methods, you want to go through now, you want to remove any of the bad takes, any of the mistakes, so that you're just left with the footage that you want to have in your edit. Now, a quick pro tip for a video like this where I'm presenting to camera, I actually like to edit backwards. So instead of working in a chronological order from the start to finish, I like to work backwards, because when I'm presenting and I stumble or make a mistake, I will redo that section or that chunk so that I know when I'm filming, I'm only moving on when I'm happy with the last take. So knowing that the last take is the one I want to use, then I'm going to edit backwards so that I'm hitting that take straight away and I'm not needing to play through all the different variations or attempts for me to say something. I'm able to edit this down much faster. So once you've gone through that process, you've removed all the bad takes and stuff, you end up with a bunch of little clips like this in the timeline. Now these clips are really chunks of footage that we can just click on, we can drag, we can swap the order around, we can pick these pieces up to build out the edit that we want. So they're just chunks of footage, which is awesome to play with. But once this step is done, the next step is to bring in any overlay footage, any B-roll footage, any stuff that we want to show or sit on top of our primary camera footage here. So I'm going to come back up here, make sure I'm on the media tab here to import more media. I'm going to come up here to import. I'm going to select our files. I've got 3 clips here. And then we can either click and drag on our clips to bring them down into our timeline. You can see this is a really big clip, so probably wouldn't do that in this case. I would instead mark out up the top here the section of that clip that we wanted. So I could start the clip about here and finish it about here. Then I can click and drag and just bring that section of the clip down. You can see it's much more manageable. Now, instead of just dropping it down the bottom here, we actually drop it on top of our primary footage so that it sits above it. And we can see if I just scrub through our footage here now, I'm still talking, but when we get to this point, then we're seeing this other video clip play on top of our primary clip. So we're still hearing everything, we're just not seeing it. So this is your B-roll or your overlay footage. Now we've got access to all the same editing tools with these clips as well. So we can adjust the start time of the clip, we can adjust the end time, and we can pick it up and we can move it wherever we would like. Now we can see that this specific clip here also has audio, so we want to be mindful of that, whether we want to actually hear what's happening with these clips. We'll get to adjusting volume levels later in the process, but for right now, let's just mute the audio on this top B-roll footage layer here. I'm just going to hit the little mute button here so that we're not hearing anything from that as we're editing. So you want to go through now, bring in any B-roll clips or overlay footage into your timeline. And for me personally, where we go for stock footage to use in our YouTube videos, primarily we're going to story blocks, and I'll have links in the description. All right, so we've brought in our B-roll or overlay clips here. Now, the next step in the process is to add any text or titles into our video. So let's say back at the start of our video here, we want to have my name that appears on screen towards the start. We want to move this playback head here towards the start, and let's come up here to text. Now in here and in a lot of tools, you'll have lots of different options in terms of just basic text or some really advanced looking stuff. So if I just want basic text, I can just come here to add text. There's default text. We can click and drag that down onto our timeline here. And you can see that it comes in as if it's its own video clip, that we can adjust the start time, the end time, all of that stuff as we can with a regular clip. But then up in our preview window here, we can see what that text is going to look like. And obviously we can edit it and we can customize it up using all the tools and controls and things over on the side here. So we can rename this to say Justin Brown. We can change the font. Maybe we'll go Oswald. Let's make it bold. Let's adjust the character spacing. You can see we've also got different presets in here that we can choose from as well. And we can also just click and drag and resize everything on here. So if we want to scale it down, we can do it from here, or we can do it using the tools here as well. So maybe we'll move this up over here and scale it a little bit. Okay, pretty basic, but we can see now that when we are playing through our video, the text appears at that point and it's going to disappear at this point. Now we can definitely get more advanced with this if we select on this title here, instead of just coming to this text tab where there's an animation tab. So we can add some simple animations to our text here as well. You'll see here in CapCut, you get access to a lot of these for free, but any of them marked as pro, then you will have to pay for. But we can add some really simple animations just from within this window. But if we want to create something a little bit more, say, next level from this, then we can come over here to text templates. And there's a bunch of different templates and things in here that we can use and we can customize up as well. Like we can see here, there's even subscribe badges that we could add into our YouTube videos. So let's just click and drag this down onto our timeline here. We can see that it now says subscribe me, strange things to say, but we can come up here and we can edit this. So subscribe. And again, we can adjust the size, we can adjust the position. So maybe we'll put it down the bottom corner or something. And we now have a subscribe button that animates on and then disappears at that point. Now, if you are looking for more advanced text templates and those sorts of things, Placeit is an amazing resource. And again, we've got a bunch of resources linked in the description box below to help you with this stuff. After that's done, we'll then add in any transitions into our edit. So if we come up here then to transitions, then these are essentially effects that we can apply between clips. So we're transitioning from one clip to another. And again, you'll see in CapCut, there's a lot of different ones where you can choose from. Some of them are free, some of them are paid, and we can preview them just by putting our mouse over them. So to give you an example of how we would apply something like this, I'm gonna grab this one here and let's drag it down to the area between two clips. And then we can release the mouse at that point. And now when we play this, instead of just being a hard cut between one clip and the next, we've now got this effect. Related or relevant, your thumbnail image, pretty simple. Now we can control this up here. We can choose how long this transition is going to go for. So if we want it to take more time to have this effect on screen longer, we can extend this out or we can shorten it down. So we'll just play this now. Related or relevant, your thumbnail image. So that's how easy it is to add transitions, but I wouldn't normally add them when both clips here are essentially the same. So these work well if we're transitioning from one clip or one style of footage to something totally different. But in the case where it's almost the same, I wouldn't apply one here. But I'll show you what I would do instead and what we do for our YouTube videos. I'm gonna remove this transition, so I'm just gonna click on it. I'm gonna press delete on the keyboard. So we've got these two clips here, which are pretty much the same. There will be a bit of a jump or a jerky piece here between the two clips, a hard cut, which is perfectly fine as well. But to smooth that hard cut out, what I would normally do is just pick either the first or the second clip here, doesn't matter, and I would zoom in on one of the clips to make it look like it was a closer up shot, or to change things up enough so that it almost feels like a second camera angle. So I've got the second clip selected here. I come up here to video controls and I can zoom in on this. Now, depending on how you've shot this and your camera quality and stuff, you don't want to go too far because you could be losing quality here. And without adjusting anything else, let's just play this again. Related or relevant, your thumbnail image also, you can see that it's not perfect, but it's a little bit better. Now, in order to really sell this effect, if you make sure the person's eyes are in a very similar position, it's going to be way less jarring and it's really going to help you sell this effect. So with this second clip here, let's just bring this down a little bit. Let's try to line up my eyes between the two. Okay, so it's not perfect, but it's still a lot better. Let's play this now. Related or relevant, your thumbnail image also. Okay, pretty good. So that's what we do for our YouTube videos instead of just having a bunch of transitions every couple of seconds. So you want to go through now, add in any transitions into your edit, and then we can start to add in some effects. Now, obviously this step here, it's going to come down to the type of video you're making, whether you want to add any effects or not, but some common ones are things like being able to speed up and slow down clips, stabilize your footage, and a lot of it's really done under this one area. So I'm just going to select this clip here in my timeline, and then to access a lot of these effects and things, it's going to be up in this top corner. So you can see just here under this video tab, if I scroll down, we have the ability to stabilize our footage here. So if it was shaky, we can fix that here by clicking that button. There's image enhancement stuff, there's noise reduction, there's camera tracking, AI movement, all of that stuff on how we can tweak and adjust our footage is up here. In regards to speeding up and slowing down our clips, we've got our speed controls here as well, where we can slow down or speed up our clips just by using these basic sliders here. And we also have the ability to add extra animations and those sorts of things, again with presets, that we can just click and drag down onto our clip. Now here in CapCut, there is another area for effects as well, which is over here. And again, this is even more presets and things that we can add onto our videos just by clicking and dragging them. So you can see you've got things like a lens blur, there's a glitch effect, different color effects and things. We can just click and drag them down onto our clip and we now have that effect on there. Once you're done adding your effects, next we're going to bring in any music or sound effects into our video. Now this is something that a lot of editing tools do have their own stock music and things that you can use in your edits. While they are included, I would strongly recommend that you make sure that you're owning the correct licenses for anything that you're putting out there on the internet, so that way you're not going to have any copyright issues. So this is where we are big fans of Artlist and Epidemic Sound. That's where we go for music for our YouTube videos. So while there is music and sound effects here in CapCut, it's not something that I want to risk uploading this stuff to YouTube. So I'm going to import a music track that I have already downloaded. I'm going to come back to the media tab. I'm going to import. I'm going to select my file and choose import. This is a file from Epidemic Sound. And to add that to our project, we want to click and drag it down below our primary footage here and let go. And we can see that just shows up as another clip in our timeline. We can do a lot of the same stuff. We can pick it up, we can move it around, we can adjust the start, the end, we can trim bits out. So we get a lot of that same functionality. So let's just move this here back to the start of our edit. Now, if we come across to the end, we'll see that our video finishes here, but our music track keeps going. So we will want to shorten that down. I'm just going to add a cut in the timeline here at this point and delete the end of this clip. Press delete. So now our music finishes the same time as our video. So you can follow that same process to bring in any sound effects as well and just place them in your timeline where you'd like them. But now that we have our music and sound effects in, we now want to make sure that our edit matches that music. So we might find that when we're playing through this now, that we're making any minor adjustments to our edits here to maybe line up some of the edits or cuts to the beat so that it flows the way that we'd like. And once you've done that, then it's time to adjust our volume levels. So what I like to do here, especially if it's this type of video where we've got someone speaking, is we want to get the audio volume levels right on our spoken piece first, because that's the important piece. And then we'll adjust our music and sound effects and things afterwards. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mute our audio down the bottom here, our music. I'm going to mute that entire layer there by pressing this button. And I'm going to come back to the start of our project here, and I'm going to select our first clip in the timeline. Now, CapCut and a lot of tools these days do a good job of automatically adjusting this for us and setting the volume levels pretty close to where we'd actually need them. So as long as your settings in your camera when you're recording aren't way off the mark, then you probably don't need to make too many real big adjustments here. So I want to make sure then that I am making adjustments to the first clip here in our timeline. Let's get that right, and then we can apply this to the remainder of our clips, or we can make manual adjustments to each if we'd need to. But let's get the first clip first. So I want to come back to the start of our video here. The next thing I want to enable is our audio monitoring or audio bars. So on CapCut, it's this button here. In a lot of editing tools, you might already be seeing this thing here on the side already. And this again is a visual representation of the audio and the volume levels in this case of what's happening in our video. So you'll see that if I hit play on this, your thumbnail images also need to be related, that we have these audio bars here that are moving. And so really simply here, we want to make sure that our audio is in the green, into the yellow or orange, but really not into the red. You can see this 0 mark here. We do not want to be hitting that 0 mark. That's where our audio would be too loud and distorting, and we definitely don't want to go over that. So we want to make sure our audio is hitting just below this, in this sort of above green, yellow to orange, but definitely not in red. And we can also see this here in CapCut, down here in our audio waveforms here on our timeline. You can see that if I lower the volume on this, we're getting nothing in the yellow. If I pull it up, then we start to see some yellow on some of those bits of that clip, right through to, if I'm fully maxing that out, the whole thing is yellow. And if we fully max this out and I play this, I'm going to mute this so you don't hear it. But you'll see that was way too loud and it hit the top of the red area. We definitely don't want that. So the idea here is on this first clip, we want to hit play. We want to see what is happening with our audio levels, and we want to make any adjustments up or down with that to get that to that sweet spot. Your thumbnail images also need to be related or relevant. The thumbnail image also needs to be related or So you can see that we're in the green and we're starting to hit the yellow, but we're not near the 0, which is good. So that audio level is pretty good for those first couple of clips. But let's say that we did need to make some adjustments. We can select the clip, we can come over here to audio, and we have our volume slider here where we can increase and decrease our audio levels accordingly. So it's a good idea when you're testing this and playing this back through to do it with headphones on, so you're getting a good representation of what you're listening to. And that's where then whatever adjustment you're going to be making, you can then apply to all of the clips. You can copy and paste the effect in a lot of cases to all the clips so that you're making that adjustment across the board. So once you've got the volume levels right for your narration or your primary footage, then we can come down here, we can unmute our music track, and then we can do exactly the same. Now, while I did click on a clip and adjust the volume levels up here, we can also do it in the timeline in a lot of tools as well. So we can see we've got this faint white line across the middle of this clip here. That is also our volume level adjustment. So I can click on that and increase it or lower it, as I did show you a little bit earlier. Now with music, again, there's no real right or wrong with this. It's a creative thing. Every music track is also going to be a little bit different. So where I like to start with this is somewhere between -25 and -30. Play that Again, see how it sounds, ideally with headphones on. Make sure that you can still hear the most important piece, which is the spoken piece, and make your adjustments accordingly. Once you've got your volume levels sorted, then it's time to color grade or color correct your footage. Now, this is something that a lot of people get wrong when they do first up. They want to make their video look pretty, look really nice, add all these effects and things on before they've cut it down. And all that's going to do is slow down your computer and make the editing process more frustrating for you. So this is why we do it last in the process here. So I want to select my first clip in the timeline here, because again, we'll make sure that our first clip is right. Then we can copy this effect all the way through. We can come up here to filters, and these are like preset looks, or think of them like Instagram filters that we could apply to our clip. So if I click on these, you can see the different looks and things that we're able to get. So obviously if there's something like this that you like the look of, then by all means you could use that, drag that effect down onto your clips. Or if you want to dial things in further from here, or you just want to start from scratch, then you've got your manual adjustment tools in all of your editing software as well. So I'm going to leave this with no filter applied, and instead I'm going to come over here to adjustments. And obviously this is an area where you can really go deep with tweaks and adjustments and things. But I'm going to scroll down because there's normally only a few that I would look at first for most videos. The first thing I want to do is make sure that the brightness is correct. So I want to come down to brightness or exposure settings, and I would brighten up the shot or darken up the shot as I needed to for that. After I've done the brightness, I would then adjust the contrast. So either add more contrast or take some away. So add a little bit more in here for this shot. And then I would look at the white balance or the actual color temperature here. So we'll come up here to temp, and you can see we can actually make this a cooler shot, add more blue, or we can make it feel warmer by adding more yellow or orange. Now you don't want to go too far with this stuff, so minor adjustments, maybe something like this. And then the last one I would play with, again, keeping things basic, is the saturation. So I guess the intensity of that color. Again, you can see if we dial this right up, it's gonna look really bad. If we go the other way, we're gonna take all the color out. So maybe just increase a little bit. And so now to compare this is obviously our color adjusted clip. If we click on the next clip here, then this is what the original was like. This is what the adjusted clip is like. Obviously we can make tweaks and adjustments further, but when we're happy with this, you see there's an option here, apply to all. So that will apply it to the remaining clips here in the timeline, or we could save this as a preset. So we can drag and drop that on to whichever clips we'd like. So I would just go apply to all, and then we can go through and we can also adjust the colors on our B-roll clips as well by selecting on them and making whatever adjustments we need. Once that's done, it's time to export our video to save it out. Up here, we've got a big export button. We'll press on that. Now in here, we'll get to give our project a name if we haven't already. We can choose where we're going to save our file out to, and then we can customize up our export settings if we'd like to. But again, this is one of those areas that most tools these days are going to create the right settings here for you based on the footage that you're using to edit. But obviously, if we want to tweak and adjust things, we can. So the bit rate here, the quality, if we wanted the highest quality, we could switch this here to higher quality, or we could choose customized and we could specify the quality that we want. I'm going to leave this here on higher. I'll leave everything else here default. We hit export and our video is then going to save out. So that is the editing process from start to finish. And again, you can apply this to almost any tool or software out there. To follow along when you're editing your videos, don't forget to download our free guide, which is linked on screen and in the description box. And for those of you that liked what you saw here in CapCut, again, a great tool that works on Windows and Mac, we actually have a deeper dive training, and I'll link to that in the description box too. I will see you in the next video.